What should you look for in a holster and what should you avoid? I'll give you my thoughts in this episode of Tactical Tidbits. Hey guys, Herman Morris from Alpha One here. I wanted to talk about holsters and primarily about concealed carry holsters, although a lot of these rules of thumb should apply for outside the waistband, exposed carry stuff. But I wanted to focus it more on concealed carry since this is kind of where the topic gets a little bit more serious and complicated, and it's very important that you have the right gear. All right, so before we even talk about holsters, we cannot have that conversation unless we talk about belts. So your holster is only as good as what it's attached to. So for instance, this is a good example of a belt that is not a cheap belt. It's not a bad belt. It's just not an adequate pistol belt. All right. This is very floppy. It's not reinforced. It's not very rigid. And so this thing has a lot of give. I would not use this as a pistol belt as opposed to something like this, a crossbreed instructor belt. This is almost 10 years old. It's very rugged. It's very rigid. This is an amazing belt that I've had for almost 10 years, and it's still going strong. So this is two pieces together. Oftentimes you'll see that there's two pieces that are around a rigid piece of plastic that gives it that rigidity, that strength. In this case, I think it's just two thick pieces of leather, and this works great. So there's a lot of examples of good belts out there. Do your homework, but do not cheapen out on the belt. If we're going to be talking about holsters and good quality gear, don't get the best quality gear when it comes to your holster and your pistol and everything else, and then go cheap on the belt because you're basically going to have a very, very bad foundation for all of that stuff. All right, so get the right stuff. All right, so holsters. The number one thing I want to focus on is we have an embarrassment of riches these days. We have access to a lot of real quality stuff, and over the last couple decades now, or getting close to a couple decades, the standard has always been Kydex. So whether it's an inside the waistband holster like this one, made out of Kydex, or an outside the waistband holster like this, made out of Kydex, this is basically the standard, and it's very rigid plastic that doesn't lose its shape, and they're basically custom to the pistol that it's for. And so that's the number one thing that you want to focus on. I'm going to talk about what to avoid here in a minute, but if you're just getting started in drawing from the holster, which is a foundational skill, an essential skill that needs to be built, because if a pistol is not locked up in a safe, it needs to be in a quality holster on you. And so I always say quality holster. I qualify that by saying quality holster, not just in a holster on you, because it's important that that holster meets some criteria. What is that criteria? Like I said, it needs to be Kydex and it needs to be rigid. It needs to be customized to fit your pistol. So you can see here, if I put this training pistol in here, this is a Glock 19, this is for a Glock 17, so it basically fits any of those family of pistols. It's nice and positive, good retention. It covers the entire trigger guard. I'm gonna be safe and good to go. So I tell people, if you're just getting started, get a good outside the waistband Kydex holster, optimally with a paddle mount, because it's very easy to get in and out of your belt. Good quality belt again, and it's very natural, and it's the safest way to practice from 3 o'clock. So get some good reps and just start building some good habits, trigger finger discipline, all that kind of stuff before you go into inside the waistband carry. All right, so that's outside the waistband. Kydex, then eventually you're gonna build into something like this, like inside the waistband. This is for something like appendix carry. All right, same thing, good quality Kydex. Again, doesn't collapse or anything, keeps its shape. You can feel and hear that little snap. It's specially made for this particular pistol. It has good retention. I'm going to be safe and set up for success. All right? So some good examples of good quality brands out there for whether it's inside the waistband or outside the waistband is Blade Tech. I have G Code. I use A&R designs. That's what I've been carrying for the last couple of years. I really like those. Tier 1 concealment. The TRX arms are just, there's too many to list here, guys. And like I said, it's an embarrassment of riches. We have access to a lot of real good quality stuff. So do your research, get the right stuff. But the thing that I wanted to focus a little bit more on, just because there's a lot of this stuff out there still, is what to avoid. And so if there's anything that collapses when the pistol comes out of it, meaning something that's made out of fabric or leather, that's what you want to stay away from. And I only have an example of one of those here. I've gotten rid of everything else that just doesn't work. And so if we go back to our parents' times, our grandparents, almost everybody had something like this or a leather version of this. This is all fabric, but you've seen these basically be made out of leather as well. And so what happens is these basically pancake as soon as the pistol is taking out of them. And I'll show you here in a second. This takes it up. These are basically sold as universal because a lot of different pistols fit in here, but they're never really good for any one type of pistol. This is okay for a compact like a Glock 19 like this, but anything smaller would be very loose in here, even with the retention strap. Anything bigger than this, a full-size pistol, would be way too tight. I might have to really pry it out, which means I'm going to come out of control, might flag myself, somebody else, and so they're not optimal. And the biggest thing that I see in classes especially, remember, people used to not train, so they would just have this thing, this kind of fit the bill. I have this pistol in the holster. I can now clip it on my hip, and I can go out to the ranch, on the farm, go hunting, in the wilderness, camping, whatever it is, and I would be good to go. But now that we're trying to build a culture surrounding training, this does not work, guys, because now that we're going to do reps, hopefully dozens, if not hundreds of reps in a class, and we're going to be going back and forth, inside and outside, and back into the holster, these don't fit the bill because when they collapse, I see people that are pointing the pistol into their bodies in order to dig the muzzle in and make create an opening for the pistol to fit back into the holster. Oftentimes, if you get one of these straps that are in there, or it might be part of your jacket or shirt or whatever, then I see people pointing the gun down while they have the other hand and they're digging out whatever it is. So they're pointing the gun at their own hand while they're clearing whatever the obstruction is, and then put the pistol into the holster. So now imagine doing that dozens or hundreds of times in a class. That is not safe. We have to stop that. We have to get away from that. And so I've been in a position in class where I've had to ask people to take off whatever, that equipment, and I give them some loaner gear or loaner pistol and holster combo in order to finish the class, because there's no way I would let them continue in the class with just that type of stuff. And that's why I scrutinize people's gear even before the class starts. As part of a pre-class email, I tell them what not to bring and those type of things to minimize that, but it still happens. So if you're focusing on training as you should, get the right stuff, come out and practice with it, get proficient with it. We'd love to see you in a class. I hope this helps. Take care.